Thanks for joining me here on Tropical Weather Impact. It is Tuesday, July the 15th. I'm meteorologist Peyton Malone. We are in New Orleans here tracking this disturbance headed to the Gulf very closely. Over the next few days, could really start to see some impacts here across Louisiana and along the northern Gulf as it lifts to the west here. So here's where we stand as of Tuesday morning. This was the 7 a.m. outlook from the National Hurricane Center. They are keeping the chances of development at about a 40% here as it pushes off to the east. And so again, the chances of this developing are still there. We could certainly have a depression or even a named storm by tomorrow as it moves into the Gulf. It could form anywhere within this zone, so this is the big uncertainty that still remains, is does low pressure try to form closer to the coast, or does it try to form further down here to the south? The interesting thing about it is if it forms further north, it's probably going to remain on the much weaker side. You've just got too much land interaction, and you don't have enough time for this thing to actually spin up in anything that's anything substantial. Now, if it's further south, if something tries to form further down here, that does give it more time over the water, about another nearly a day in some cases if it's far enough south. And so that would give it extra time to try to organize, to try to become not only a named storm, but certainly a tropical storm. And if you've looked at some models, some have had it becoming even a weak hurricane. Now, that seems to be one of the far-fetched scenarios right now, but I will say, let's be careful with models because they have not done a good job so far. They've basically been playing catch up every single time we have checked them so far. Now, what's interesting right now is for your Tuesday, this is going to be moving across Florida, and so we're not going to see it organize much more into anything as it travels across land. Also, something interesting, you may be looking at this and thinking, why isn't this a depression if it looks like a closed circulation? Well, the National Hurricane Center was saying it was an unorganized area because of this right here. You see that? That's the low-level center. That was down here near the rain earlier this morning. It's lifting away and heading up to Jacksonville. It doesn't have any rain with it. Now, this is a mid-level center. So what this tells us is that you've got this at the surface spinning and you've got this midway up in the atmosphere spinning. So you don't have a stacked vortex. It's tilted to the side. And so right now the low-level center is drifting away from the rain and the mid-level center is spinning there, moving towards Orlando this morning. So what will happen here is this little center is going to dissipate and there's nothing really going to be left of it as it moves inland. This will have to become the new center if it's ever going to strengthen. So again, this will be the focus point here as this rain and mid-level center travel across central Florida. It will eventually emerge out in the Gulf here, and that could be at least the breeding grounds or the seed for this thing to become a depression or a tropical storm. And it may not take much. I mean, it already has the spin in it. It has banding features. You just got to get it back out over water. And so that's what we're going to be watching closely. That's going to happen tonight. And so that little mid-level center will enter the at least extreme northeastern Gulf by later this afternoon and into tonight. Now, when you look at your spaghetti models here, you also got to be cautious with these because they're locking on to the low-level center, the mid-level center, and they're a bit confused on what's happening here. In a lot of cases, when you do have an unorganized system like this that just has a mid-level, a low-level, you can get new centers of circulation forming in different spots. And the reason that's happening is because we've got some wind shear on it right now. So here we are tomorrow afternoon. Notice we've got a lot of the members up here in the northern Gulf, and this is why it doesn't strengthen it very quickly if you look at a lot of these models. It's just too close to land and things aren't spinning up very quickly. Now, if you go out in time further, you can see you get this little divergent of models. This is the low-level center tracking it in and dissipating it. These models are showing that mid-level center becoming the center basically and drifting south or drifting west, little southwest movement, and then turning by Thursday. And so we're really leaning towards this solution as probably what's going to happen with the track, less this right here. More that the center is probably going to be tracking through the Gulf and then start to slowly turn into Louisiana by Thursday and into Friday. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty with this because we really need to see what that center wants to do if it does want to reform later tonight and into tomorrow. And on the flip side, I mean, we've seen it time and time again where models do really struggle with these centers and the formation of these centers. If it can come together fast enough, then you've got a different setup here we're working with. So I want to show you here, this is just one of our high resolution models. This is a model that does redevelop a new center, and it's more aggressive with this thing in the Gulf here. So this is what we've got right now. Your low-level center's here. This is a mid-level center moving inland. It spins over Florida through this afternoon. And notice by this evening, it's already pushing past Florida and out into the Gulf. Now, this is where it's going to look really messy. You're probably going to have a broad circulation in here. This is when it's going to get out over the warm waters, and we could start to see some low-level circulations forming. Now, this is a good example of you're going to have a messy setup for a little while. Now, this is tomorrow morning. This model shows a little spin here, a little spin here, a little spin here. Which one of those, if any of them, become the dominant feature? That's going to determine how much this system can strengthen. Now, this specific model has a little bit further south than all of our spaghetti plots, which are more in here. Now, if this system comes in and our center of circulation forms further south than what those models think, then we have more time over the warm water. The wind shear will be decreasing eventually. It's not going to be as strong, and we certainly could have a named storm forming in here somewhere by Wednesday. It just depends on how things evolve tomorrow morning with that circulation, that mid-level circulation. And so this is one of the main things we watch out for when these storms are in their formative stages of where is that center trying to take stage. And the placement of this is very important because it's all about time. The further north you have a system, you don't have much time for it to develop. That's what we want. We want a system that's closer to land so it stays on the weak side. What we don't want to happen is this big old complex of storms to come out somewhere near Tampa and start to form further south. There's going to be a little wind shear directing on it, and so it'll probably keep a lot of the storms in this area, and that's why I think this model, it's not outlandish with something forming a little further south and in the central Gulf here. Now, when you put this in motion, it shows that center of circulation taking over. This is one of the further southern solutions of a model we have, and it shows a bona fide tropical storm there, and then eventually it shows a storm strengthening more and lifting into Louisiana. That would be one of the more extreme scenarios, but I wanted to talk about it because you gotta watch these scenarios on both ends when you're talking about a storm coming your way in the Gulf. And once again, the wind shear is not going to be terrible. Right now, we do have quite a bit of wind shear on the thing, and that's why you have a low-level center flying away from the mid-level. Now, tomorrow, once it's in the western or the eastern Gulf here, it's still going to have some wind shear, but not as much. And so we will see how that impacts where that center is trying to form. Again, the reason I do think that maybe one of these solutions a little further in the Gulf is plausible is if we have enough wind shear. So let me draw arrows on here. So if you have a center of a storm trying to form like in here, and you've got some easterly wind shear pushing on it like this, it's keeping all those showers and storms on the bottom side of that circulation, which means you can get further formations further south. And so that's why we could see, it's at least plausible that something's trying to spin up a little further south. That's one of the reasons we've got to watch this closely on Wednesday. Now, everyone's been asking, why is it moving like it's moving? Well, it all has to do with this ridge of high pressure that's going to be building in across the Gulf. So this is tomorrow. You can see there's an extension of this high pressure over the deep south. Our little feature is going to be down in here somewhere tomorrow, and so it's riding around the edge of that ridge. And that ridge has got a little extension further, so that's why we may see a little dip here and there. It's also going to be slowing down, and you do get sometimes erratic movements with slower moving systems. Now, this is Thursday. This is when we would probably see something moving into the Louisiana area. If we have a landfalling system, it would be around Thursday, or maybe the exact timing still up in the air, but some point Thursday, maybe even late Thursday if it slows down enough. And then it begins to turn, and this ridge begins to strengthen, and then that right there is a area, or what's left over a tropical system, locked under a ridge. There's not going to be any movement in the atmosphere when you're talking about that expansive, that ridge that expansive. And so this is why that flood risk may even linger into Saturday and Sunday. So that's something that has got our attention too. And like we've been saying, regardless of development, whether this thing is a depression, a named storm, or it just remains an elongated area of showers, like what they're calling it now, it's going to bring heavy rainfall, and it's going to be slowing down, so this has got our attention here. Now, these numbers you're seeing put out, I think these are very preliminary. I think these are probably going to be adjusted, maybe even adjusted dramatically. Just looking at the data here, we do not have a ton of agreement on the exact amounts that are going to fall across Louisiana and Mississippi, but this is a good, graphic to show that there is the potential for very heavy rain. Widespread, I think 2 to 5 inches is a good bet, but it wouldn't be shocking. You've got a tropical system moving in, you'll certainly see higher amounts in spots, but just take these numbers with a grain of salt right now. We're probably going to be adjusting them here over the next day or two. The flood risk will begin to go up later Wednesday into Thursday across the Gulf Coast, across South Louisiana. Friday has been looking like maybe one of the worst days because while the storm, if it is a storm, makes landfall somewhere in our area Thursday, it's again not going to be in a hurry to move. So we may get some banding features that set up, and those are when that's when you start to see some of those impressive rain totals. I mean, there was some models yesterday spitting out over a foot of rain in some areas. And so while the big red area right now is locked in through the Acadiana and back through the Atchafalaya Basin, maybe as far east as the Bayou parishes here in southeast Louisiana, we could still see adjustments to this. So again, don't get locked in. Everyone from, let's say, Lake Charles or Beaumont all the way to the Mississippi coast or at Mobile needs to follow this very closely. We always say you don't turn your back on a system trying to form in the Gulf during hurricane season. The Gulf waters are plenty warm right now. They're in the upper 80s, and wind shear is not terrible, especially towards Thursday. So that's why we're going to watch it. Regardless, rainfall is probably going to be the main show here unless this thing really kicks off in the Gulf and starts to strengthen. Then we'll have to add other impacts, but since there's so much uncertainty there, it's almost impossible to get into those other impacts because we just don't know just yet. But we do know the moisture is coming towards the southeast Louisiana, South Louisiana area, and so rain chances will begin to go up Wednesday into Thursday and especially Friday. And again, it's a slow mover, so we'll probably even see some tropical rains linger into your Saturday and Sunday. That's going to do it for your Tuesday morning update. We will have updates continuously right here on WWL Plus. Make sure you're staying tuned into our YouTube here or WWLTV.com. We've got you covered everywhere. I will see you right back here tomorrow morning with the latest.